What if your deepest pain was actually the path to your greatest purpose? Have you ever wondered how some people can just fall so low and then they rise so high? That's what we're going to talk about today. Sometimes the hardest moments in your life actually prepare you for something extraordinary. My guest today knows this stuff firsthand. So he grew up in a very rough, abusive household, but he found his faith, he found his purpose, and that pain that was in led to his purpose. So we've all been knocked down before. We've had our ups and downs. If you're in business, you know that for certain. And sometimes some people are just able to rise up even stronger. So I'm going to be talking with Amir today, Amir Kendic. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. And he's the author of the book called From Pain to Purpose. And it's about how to find hope in the darkness and shifting your mindset, because that's really powerful, is to be able to shift that mindset. He talks about how to create a life of resilience. And it's not just a buzzword, it's a decision. So if you're just now tuning in, you're tuning into Success Through Connections, and I'm Zelda, your host. So I'm going to tell you a little bit how I met Amir. Amir, I did not know. I didn't find him on LinkedIn like I do most of my guests. I actually attended a conference in the west coast of Florida where the famous Les Brown was speaking, and he brought in 9 other speakers, and Amir was one of them. And he just impressed me with his story and his presence. And I just thought I need to share him with my audience. So Amir, he comes from a childhood that was marked with abuse and pain. He walked the path from darkness to light. And I'm sure there were a lot of bumps along the road there. So he was self-destructive, but he found redemption through inner work, which we all need sometimes, and through faith. We all need faith. So today he's a devoted father. He's a successful entrepreneur. He's a coach, and he helps guide others out of that darkness, out of those shadows, to heal and unlock their potential. So his mission is simple. It's to help others break free, rise strong, and create a better world, one healed soul at a time. Welcome, Amir.
Welcome. Hi, how are you? It's a pleasure to be here.
One thing I didn't mention is you're all the way from Canada, so we're on different time zones and everything here.
Yes. Where are you exactly?
I'm actually in Florida.
Oh, you're Florida. Okay.
I'm
So
in
you're
Florida.
okay. Okay. What part of Florida?
The East Coast, a place called Ponte Vedra. So Here we go. So Amir, I know that I heard you.
It's Amir, by the way.
Amir, thank you. Amir. I appreciate that. Amir. And I normally will ask somebody at the very beginning, how do you pronounce your name? Amir. I will remember that. I apologize. Okay, Amir.
No worries.
Amir, your story is raw, but it's inspiring. So I would like to know, when you wrote the book From Pain to Purpose, you grew up in this abusive home. So what kept you going? Is there any option when you're growing up and you're coming? Where's the hope? Where's that spark of hope when you're growing up in that environment?
Well, when you're growing up in that environment, it's all I knew. So I didn't know any better. I thought this was normal. All the dads I grew up around were abusive. All the moms were abused. So, you're talking, Eastern Europeans that came to the country from communism. And the men were just very angry men, and they worked very hard. They had nothing growing up. So whether it was in my home or a friend's home, it was the same environment everywhere I went. Yelling, screaming, hitting. It was the only way they knew how to deal with things. So as a kid, I didn't know any better. I'd never been into anyone's home that was Western culture, like Canadian or American. It was just all your typical European families I grew up around. And then it was in high school where I started to see the differences. And then this is kind of where the conflict started for me. This is where a lot of the anger started to form. And, I wasn't sure how to cope with it or deal with it. I also didn't know or understand my own emotions. I was just an angry, lost kid, and I was scared all the time. So I masked it all. I put on the mask of a good time guy. As a teenager, I was the party boy.
You hear about that
Smoked a
all the
lot.
time. I'm the comedian in the classroom.
The class clown. That was me. I jokingly said in my speech, I was the rebel without a clue. That was me, the bad boy. And I became popular that way. But inside, I was just a scared young man. I didn't put any effort in school because I was so terrified that if I tried, it was going to reflect back to me what I was already taught to believe about myself, that I was just stupid, you know? It wasn't until later, late teens, where I started to really crash out, got really bad because high school was a place of protection. It was a bubble. I didn't know the world outside of high school, right? But when I graduated and barely, friends went off to university. I didn't have the grades for university. No one would have accepted me. So I was even more terrified. So I went further into drugs and alcohol. That was just the place I hid in. And again, the good time guy. But it got really bad. And I was terrified. I had no idea where to go, what to do. So, where hope came from, I only, today looking back, no, it only came from one source. And I deeply believe God poked a pinhole of hope through all of my darkness. And it was so low that I started to think, well, what's the worst that could come from trying to pursue that bit of hope? Because where I am has no good ending. So I started to pull on that thread of hope that there could be something better because I was being exposed to more people that were actually good functioning people that came from good loving families.
How did you get exposed to these if you were so used to, you were enmeshed in the bad boys? How did you get surrounded by, because it is surrounding yourself with a different crowd of people. How did you get from out of that bad crowd into a crowd where you saw that there really was something better out there?
Well, this is going to make you laugh, but it is a very true story. It was through girlfriends. I started dating in high school and you were going to their homes and you could see, loving families, good homes. So perfect example, went to see my girlfriend. It was grade 9 and I went into her house and we were going to go shoot some pool in her basement, but her mom and dad were having a candlelit dinner. And I thought there was something wrong with these people. I literally said to her, "What is wrong with your parents?" She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, like, "What is up with that? What are they doing?" And she said, "My parents have a date night every week." I thought they were like, wow, something's wrong with these people, but sadly it was me that was dysfunctional. What her home was normal. My high school sweetheart, same thing, like loving mom and dad. They were two teachers, great. She grew up in a great family, loved, great, very, very well put together people. So I started to see these things and it felt so unnatural that there was like friction between me and these environments.
Yeah, I can't imagine going from one home and then you have to go home. It's like you don't want to go home because you see that you know how good it can be. You dread going to the house.
You do. And, these people that I was spending more and more time with in high school that were, from good homes, well, they knew what my home was like, because when they would come to visit and come in my house, they could see, they could feel it.
Bring them to your house.
No, because my dad chased people away. My dad was a lunatic. So, mom, like as a kid growing up, was distant and unavailable, but once I got into high school, she changed. She became entirely different, very loving, very supportive, and she told me the change was I was 13 years old because my mom was known for yelling and screaming. Like everyone knew my mom just yelled and screamed. But it was at the age of 13, I walked up to her and said, "Why are you so mean?" And she said the light bulb went off. Then she said, "Oh my God," and that's my mom became something entirely different after that, but, my dad was still a lunatic. So bringing people to the home was just very uncomfortable because you never knew what was going to happen. You would feel a knot in your stomach because at any given moment you felt he was going to embarrass you because he didn't care who was there. My dad didn't care who was around you, right? He had no shame in his behavior. So, going to other people's homes, you're starting to piece some things together. And then I had a 5-year relationship with a girl when I was 17. And she came from a remarkable home. I mean, her mom and dad were beautiful people, very kind and loving, madly in love with each other. And the daughters, my girlfriend and her sister, were, what you'd expect, two spoiled girls who didn't know any better. They were raised by great parents and they thought the whole world was like that. And when my girlfriend got exposed to my home, she changed in how she treated her parents. And it was a big shift in their home. Yeah. And her parents were so grateful.
Yeah. He
For all
appreciated
of
what
it.
she had.
She did. And her parents took me in and they knew I was a lost, troubled kid. They knew I was very damaged, very broken, very sad, very scared of the world, lost. And her dad, in his way, tried to take me under his wing. But it was a struggle for me. It was a tug of war. I didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust, why would you be this kind to me? Why are you being this nice to me?
What do you want?
Yeah. Like, what's your malfunction? What's your problem? Kind of thing. Right. So, unfortunately, the relationship fell apart and it was a very difficult relationship for her because I was very dark. I would go missing for 2, 3 days because I would be drinking and high somewhere and she would cry because she couldn't reach me. And then I would surface. But it was in through that relationship.
Tug of war with your head.
It was.
Yourself. It was a tug of war in your head.
It was. And then it was, through that collapse where something in me changed. Something was, this can't be it to life. This can't be it. Like you have physically seen people that are actually happy and living a happy life. So there's got to be more. This can't be it, and that was the start.
Yeah. So what did you do at that point when you said, okay, there's got to be more? Because I know that people who are on drugs, they're doing great and then they fall back so it's not a straight path up.
No, it's not. It's a seesaw battle.
So, it's like, I know that there's a lot of people out there who are probably facing the same or similar types of pains. And maybe it's not necessarily drugs and alcohol. Maybe they're just facing some kind of a pain. It could be a failure. It could be rejection. It's all kinds of things that mess with our heads. What advice could you give somebody who feels like life's just too heavy? I just want to give up.
Well, for me, what saved my life came later in life, and it was through the method of shadow work, diving deep into my unconscious mind and understanding what I believed about my core self. What were my core beliefs about me, right?
What is shadow work?
Shadow work is taking the unconscious mind and making it conscious. It's getting to the actual root of your behaviors. All right. I tried talk therapy throughout my young life. I tried the antidepressants, the anti-anxiety, all that stuff. All it ever did was get to the root. Okay. Or sorry, the surface. It was always surface level. When I broke out of all of the dysfunction in my late teens, I transferred all of that negative energy and channeled it into positive things. Okay. So I loved sports. I loved competing in sports. So I took that energy that I was putting into drugs and partying and drinking and nonsense. And then I focused on, I want to get back into competing. I want to clean my body. I want to cleanse my body. So I got back into training and it changed my focus in my mind and it put energy into something positive. And I was reaping rewards of it because my body started to change, right? I was cleaning myself out. And it was like one intuition feeling after another. Go get a book. So I went to Chapters and started looking for a self-help book, something to start. Just give me a thread to start. Because again, I had no mentor. I had no man to look at me and say, you know what, son, you got something in you and I know how we're going to make you a big, shiny diamond, So it was all pieced together through what I call like these little moments of intuitive guides. Okay. Which I know I say this and I deeply mean it. It was God lighting a path for me. Okay.
I believe what you're saying. In fact, I wrote it down in the little notebook when I was taking notes. You said God plants the seeds, but you have to water them. Is this what this looks like in real life to you? You're watering it. It's like, okay, sports. I'm into sports. Let me focus. Tell us a little bit more about watering those seeds that God plants.
That's exactly what it is. It's up to you. You got to take the steps. You got to move. I'll light the way. You got to follow it. You got to take the paces. And, you've heard the saying, like when you pray for strength, God doesn't give you strength. He gives you circumstances to grow strong through. When you pray for courage, you don't get courage. You get things that terrify you, but it is up to you to move through it. He's not going to drag you through it. You got to walk through it with hope and faith that this path is going to get you somewhere. And that's exactly what it was. I was terrified of everything. All right. So when I bought this book, and it happened to be Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first book I'd read from front to back that I wasn't forced to read. And this started the snowball. He talked about that inner belief, that core belief about yourself. From there, I went and I wrote a list of 100 goals I wanted to achieve in my life. And I said, we're going to write this list of 100 goals as if you have no limitations. All right. No borders, no boundaries. What is it that you fantasize about life? And I wrote this list of 100 goals, and it took me about a week to do it. And as I was starting to move, it just led from one step to the next step. It's just like little intuitive guides just started coming in. Okay, now we're going to go do this. So how did I break out of my shell? I went and took an acting class, right? Why? Not because I wanted to be an actor, but performing in front of 30 strangers every week scared the wits out of me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But faith and courage and hope kept me moving. Okay. And what happened halfway through that class, I started to come out of my shell. When I had my final presentation, it was a 5-minute monologue I had to do. I chose a scene from, oh my God, it just escaped me the name of the movie, Saving Private Ryan.
Okay.
It was a 5-minute monologue. And I wanted to throw up before I went into class that last day.
I would.
And so I did it, and I got like an eruption of applause. And the guy who ran the class was a director, and he put me in an indie flick he had in Toronto. Yeah, he pulled me aside.
Opportunities opened up for you through your connections. Yeah.
Exactly. And so by challenging myself through things that scared me, it was pulling me out of a shell. It was starting to show me an entirely different world, that there were bigger possibilities, getting back into sports and training and working out and physically getting my mind, body, spirit right. I was getting confident. All right. I went back and tried out for a soccer team. Like I grew up, I was a very good soccer player. Took me 6 months to get into shape. Played on it's like indoor soccer here during our winters. I was so bad because I've been out of it for so long.
Right.
But I used that winter to get into game shape. So when the outdoor season started, I tried out for a team and I took the starting position from somebody else. And then I played for that team for 3-4 years, finished top 3 in the league in scoring. So I kept doing these challenges that were building confidence. Now I'm building momentum. Then I started a business with my sister and we got into it. And all of a sudden I'm just living in an entirely different world. Yeah. And then, there was just so much hope, that life was going to be something different for me. And I pursued, moving away from home. I just had this gut feeling like you got to go somewhere. Pick a place, go to it, just remove yourself from here and really go run with the bulls and do something crazy. And I did. I moved to California. I had no plan, I had no home, no place. I just went and it all worked out. I was there for half a year and surfed every day. And, I was just a happy-go-lucky guy. I was just something entirely
while
different.
You were living this happy-go-lucky life, did you ever have the past try to pull you back in?
So not at this stage because I was high on life. Did I drink? Yeah, but it wasn't like abusive. It was like I was still having bevies at the bar, but it was a different type of thing. It wasn't a drinking of sadness, or trying to mask everything. I was just living life and having the time of my life, And living this way throughout my 20s, I thought and believed I'd healed all my wounds, but later in life, everything nosedived again. I hit I hit this peak and then it all just collapsed on me. It was when I started to settle into real life and I started to have to put the work in for a career and start building goals, and I was working a career, building business and all these things. This is where I found my tug of war. There was the ambitious side of me, the guy that was wide-eyed and hungry and had all the hope in the
Right.
world, and wasn't, I was scared, but I had all the courage in the world because I had all these wins from courage leading up to this that I'm like, there's no reason this won't work out. But then there was this other side of me who was sabotaging it all and destroying it all. And as life started to become more chaotic, things started to implode on me.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Even sits on the
choosing.
shoulder calling you.
That's exactly what it was. And what innocently started out like I thought was partying wasn't. It was masking and hiding. And then, I got married, started a new job with a new company, and I was just surrounded by people that were not the right fit for me. And, between my marriage, the company I was working for, my father, my 30s became chaotic and insane. And I collapsed back into drugs and alcohol. And this time it was worse because I had more to lose. And, it was just, you factor in stress of life now too. It just snowballed. And the walls were constantly caving in on me. And I just felt like I was always trying to hold them up. And I became detached from emotions. I was hollowed out, felt nothing, no joy, no sadness. I was just a robot trying to keep it all
How
together.
did you get out of that hole?
Well, it got worse before it got better. So I ended up being hospitalized multiple times, like between drugs and alcohol. Keep in mind, many people didn't know this was behind closed doors and hidden. And I wouldn't sleep like 2 nights a week. I'd be up all night and then just shower and go to the office. And I ran staff and people and projects and clients. And
You were a
I'd go to,
functional addict.
I was, and now I got a little girl to raise and my body quit on me. My ex-wife said to me, she came into the kitchen once, I had a bottle in front of me. It was 2 a.m. And she looked at me and she said, you can't will your way through life. It's going to get you. And it did. My will was strong, but my body collapsed. I got rushed to hospital. My appendix ruptured. It was really bad, completely gangrene. They rushed me into surgery and then they had me on observation after that. And for 48 hours, I was running a bad fever, very bad. It wouldn't settle. And they took me in for another scan. I'd lost a liter of blood internally. I was bleeding out. So they rushed me into another surgery. So now here I am in hospital, a couple of weeks, morphine, just a mess with my 2-year-old little girl crawling all over me, and it was the saddest moment of my life. It really was. My little girl is my whole world. She's everything to
How
me.
did you
And
get out of it this time and stay out of it at this point?
so this is where it's all leading to. So my marriage ended, everything collapsed, moved out, slowly tried to start cleaning myself and fixing myself up. And I just couldn't get it right. I just couldn't, you know? It was like a step forward, two-step back, step forward, two-step back. Really down and upset because I had all this love in the world for a little girl. I'm like, how could you love something so much and not fix yourself? Why is it not working? Then I met someone, a phenomenal woman who's now my fiance. And I'm telling you, God opened the sky and dropped her in my lap. I met someone so phenomenal that I knew God would not give me another chance. I knew this was it for me. If I don't make this work, if I don't fix me, I'll lose not only her, but I will never find myself again. I'm gone. I knew that she would not leave me. I knew that she would go down with the ship. This is who she is. And she's just a woman who's just so deeply rooted in her faith in Christ that I'm convinced he brought her to me to fix myself. And then I just made the decision. I've got to do something. I've got to change this. I've got to fix this.
It's truly a mindset. It's truly the mindset, and having to say no when the demons are pulling you. You've got to be able to flick it off and say, no, I'm not listening to you. But
Yeah. And
that's easier said than it is done. I understand that. I have addictions to food. I like to eat and not the healthy stuff. And it's
yeah.
tough sometimes that I know that box of brownies is in the pantry calling my name. Come cook, make me bake it. And then my daughter came over and I said, please take this out of my pantry because it's calling me and I can't eat this stuff. It's not, drugs and alcohol, but it is my drug. So I totally get it. And you have to, it's like when people are in despair, you have to figure out, you have to have faith. What you were saying, you have to have the faith that the doors will open. And I do believe what you were saying earlier, like our failures are those, I believe they're the stepping stones to your success. You have to go through the fire. You have to go through the pain to get to the success, to appreciate it. Some people are not able to flick those things off of their shoulders, and others are, not without the peaks and the valleys. I want to move on to Les Brown. Les Brown, you signed up for him. You were mentored by Les. Was there one lesson you could share that shifted your perspective on your life and how you live it from Les?
Well, I've been following Les Brown for a long time. So that dark period I mentioned to you, I have Les's voice in my head. And it was through very dark periods, like days where I was on a come down and had to function that day, and it was in a deep state of depression. I would put his voice recordings on there, and I would just listen to him on repeat. I could go through a lot of my Instagram where I'm putting out positive messages and I know where they were inspired from because I know that morning I had listened to Les Brown's voice,
Yeah, listen to some motivational tapes and videos and YouTubes. And I know for me, actually, it was on the way. I drove 4 hours to get to I didn't fly as far as you did, but I drove 4 hours to get to his conference. And I listened all the way there and back to the book, Let Them by Mel Robbins. And boy, was that a life changer for me. It was because I had problems with my kids. And, when your children are older and you see them having some missteps and you want to go in there and fix it. And I've learned that you just have to let them make their mistakes.
Yeah, you do. They have a purpose, a path, and their mistakes are going to teach them. And mine did when I got into all of the shadow work, and which really ultimately shadow work is rewiring your nervous system. That is the key to your healing. That is the key to changing your life. It is rewiring your nervous system. Your nervous system is what triggers you wanting to go get food from your cupboard. Your nervous system is what triggers you to wanting to put a drink to your mouth. All right. It is getting to the root cause of why your nervous system is firing that trigger. Yeah. And that's what all of shadow work is. It's getting in there, getting to the root, changing it, reframing it, sending a different signal back to your nervous system. And that's how I'm 2.5 years sober now.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So what role does forgiveness of yourself play in your healing and moving forward?
Oh, it is extremely important to be able to forgive yourself. I looked back on the worst days of my life with nothing but guilt and shame, and I resented those years. Forgiveness is looking back at yourself during that time and thanking yourself for getting you through the worst days of your life. That version of me was strong enough to carry everything he carried so that I could become the man that I am today. So I forgive that man. I love that man. And I'm grateful for everything that man struggled and survived through so that I could be the man I am today that lives in fulfillment, joy, peace, and fully in connection to God and Christ.
That's beautiful. So what does your purpose look like today?
Purpose for me today is I've taken all of the lessons I've learned through life, believe deeply I was meant to walk through that in order to be able to shed light on those that need it today. My purpose today is very simple. I've working to completely surrender to Christ and letting him guide me. instead of me forcing like I have throughout my life. My purpose is my family, my fiance, my daughter, the people that I love that surround me, the people that prop me up and help me when I didn't love myself, the people that love me enough when I didn't love myself.
Yeah.
You know?
Beautiful. That's beautiful. So if you could look into the camera to all the listeners who are out there listening and watching, because we're on YouTube, and speak directly to someone who perhaps is struggling, they're stuck, they feel invisible, they're just going through a really bad time right now, what could you say to them?
Well, there is a path for you. And even in my lowest days, the thing that I never let go of was hope. So wherever you are, however grim it can be, hope is your salvation. Hope is what gives you ideas, dreams, and the courage to follow it. And it all starts with learning how to love yourself. The world won't love you until you learn to love yourself.
That's beautifully said. So Amir, beautiful, beautiful. We're at the end of our 30 minutes, which has gone over, but I know you have a tight schedule. So I would like to ask you, how can our audience, if they want to connect with you, if they want some of your coaching or they want your book, how can they connect with you?
So easily, you can email me, Amir@amirkendic.com, or just go to my website, amirkendic.com, or you can reach me on Instagram, amir.kendic.
Very good. And we'll put those in the show notes as well so that people can find you. And now I have one final question. It's the signature question I ask everybody. So if you could share with us a story of a time when an opportunity presented itself to you because of a connection that you had.
Oh, yes. So, well, I mean, I have a saying, you are only one handshake away from something remarkable. All right. So if you're looking to find your place in this world, get out and shake hands. Shake as many hands as you can, because you never know what doors will open by doing that. Mix with that, taking a leap of faith. And I did that with taking the Les Brown's course. And by taking that, I was able to shake hands of individuals that led me to living out my dream, which was getting on stage.
Yeah.
And not just being on stage, but I shared a stage with a man that his words helped transform my life in some of my darkest days.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Les Brown is awesome. So are you, Amir. I mean, this is
Thank you so much.
A beautiful story. And that is the close of this week's episode of Success Through Connections. I hope that you'll remember to subscribe to this channel, and remember that success does not happen in isolation. It happens because of the connections that we have. Today, connections are currency. It is the new power move. So keep on connecting, and I'll see you next week with a new episode of Success Through Connections.